Hi, my name's Joe Cernik, and I'd like to welcome you to Books and Strikes. Books and Strikes is a show where we discuss books on baseball, and sometimes we even take the cameras out on the road to see what's going on regarding baseball in the St. Louis area. Now, today we're going to be discussing a book on baseball written by Arthur Johnson, who's a professor of political science at the University of Maryland. His book is called Minor League Baseball and Local Economic Development, so how we see baseball spread out. Now, joining me on the show is Eric Click. Eric is a former undergraduate student of mine who received his Ph.D. from the University of Texas and wrote a doctorate dissertation on the St. Louis Cardinals and economic development models related to it. He is a professor of public administration at Polk City College, which is located in Florida. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Now, talking about this book. It's interesting, quote, I'm going to just read a little introductory quote here. It is a highly prized industry that is made possible, as are major league sports, by the investment of millions of dollars of taxpayer money in playing facilities and other subsidies. This in reference to medium and small-sized cities that subsidize the building of baseball stadiums for minor league teams.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the minor league is a little bit different than the major league, which I think the book does a good job of, because specifically you're targeting or dealing with smaller, medium-sized cities at best. And as Bill DeWitt even said in my dissertation, but even major league teams are relatively small businesses when you really look at them in the larger big picture, and the amount of impact that they have relative to, say, a larger corporation just isn't there. So when you look at a minor league team, you have to be very careful, because most of the time, as the author does a good job of pointing out, you look at, or they're judged based upon the major league benefits or the major league disadvantages, when in reality they're a very, very small percentage of the growth or impact in a city where I think he even said that most of the teams only have about 22 employees, and I think most of them, if not all of them, are part-time employees. And so you're looking at a different sort of animal when you look at minor league baseball in comparison to major league baseball.
Yeah, I noticed he spent time distinguishing between what he called the direct economic effect and the secondary effect, which he called the intangibles. So now you're addressing the idea of, if we put this minor league ballpark in a community, how does it affect the quality of life of the community? And these aren't necessarily things you're really looking at when you're talking about a major league team, that you're sort of bringing into account all these other unknown variables. You're hoping it breaks even, maybe doesn't lose you money, may make you a few dollars, but the exact economic impact's difficult to measure.
Right, and they do look at this in Major League Baseball. They tried to push this more, particularly in the 80s, but it's definitely, the intangibles are very hard to justify, as you said. There are some models that have attempted the contingent valuation method, which is actually how you value environmental impacts too. They've all pretty much said, even at the major league level, when you actually try to look at then the economic benefits of these intangibles, that they're very hard to quantify, and even if there are, they can't justify the large public subsidies. So when you're looking at the minor league, because for the most part they know they're very small businesses, you have to get more into a image issue, both a local and a national identity, but particularly with minor league opposed to major league, you're looking at more of a regional identity opposed to a national identity. And you also then have to look at how that image or those marketing effects can then capitalize possibly on other economic development or other strategies in building your city. Now, some of the teams in the book did a good job of that, some of the teams didn't, but at least in the author's mind, that's what you should be doing.
Yeah, I noticed, because they were saying, again, to distinguish major from minor league teams, it's as though the major league team brings some sort of a name recognition or panache to a city, and minor league teams are not going to do that. So now you're trying to figure out, well, how does this minor league team fit in with the overall image of economic development within the smaller community? So you're trying to sort of link it to other things. Either you're trying to link it to maybe attracting a major league team, or you're trying to have people get the feeling that your city isn't a pass-through city where they just keep going through it but never stop. And then you're trying to figure out, well, how many people from outside your community might in fact come to see something of a minor league game. And certainly it has nothing to do with the team winning. So there's no relationship here between attendance and winning.
Right, and he does a good job of talking about that because, again, with the minor league teams, you're almost for sure not going to be making money. So like you said, you have to link it to something else. Now the problem is, where does that money come from? Because opposed to major league teams with the name recognition, or again, as they say with major league teams, big boys with big toys, so a lot of people like to get involved with that, particularly the corporate element, elected officials, because it gets a very good show put on for them and makes them look as if they're doing something, whether they are or they aren't. And then also the media can sell papers with that. Now at a minor league level, again, those kind of spin-off benefits necessarily aren't there. So what they try to do is they say, okay, if we're going to fund it publicly and that's going to help the team, let's try to get a win-win situation. However, when you actually look at the actual economic models in general, they almost all lose money. So how do you fund these things? So ultimately, it's very hard to have a minor league team sustained in a small area, even though a lot of people think of Bull Durham and that sort of thing, although I think a lot of people in Bull Durham think of more of Susan Sarandon. But regardless, when you look at those sort of things, the money just isn't there, and it doesn't make sense for both the corporations because they don't want to invest. If the city invests, they're going to lose money, and then the team doesn't want to invest. So they're a very interesting thing to look at individually. And again, they have to be put into a broader economic development package. But even then, unless your broader economic development package is very good, you're still going to be losing money. So then you're back to the image issue. And is that image, or are those intangibles really worth it? And I think those are very hard to measure, and for a lot of people that don't go to the games, they're going to say no. Because for a lot of places right now where you're having money cut in education, and they're saying, hey, my kids can't get a quality education, what do I care about a baseball game?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. He was talking about the multiplier effect, which is how much money you put in versus how much you get back. And he says, well, the best studies come up with the idea, and I guess the best way to look at it is if you put $1 in, you might get $1.50 back, or if I put $1 in, I get $3 back. So I'm going, wait a minute, that's a heck of a range. You're either going to break even or slightly above break even to significantly above. In other words, the best studies are guesstimating.
Right.
And reason appeared to be, which I thought was interesting, they were trying to figure out what is a base? How much do we start with? We assume people are coming into an area. Let's take Fort Wayne, right, Indiana, which doesn't get a baseball team, but they eventually are trying to figure out what they should measure. So he's saying, we went around to a local movie theater and we looked at the license plates. So we're now trying to figure out who in these license plates is not from Fort Wayne. Let's use that as a baseline amount. But then they went around and they called other minor league teams. What's your baseline? What do you attract? And so you're looking at a range between 20% of the people that are coming to your event are from outside, as high as 60%, which again, if I'm saying starting with 20% base, or I'm using 60% base and saying that's what I'm supposed to be attracting, and now I have to attract above that. Well, if I say 20%, it's easier for me to attract a few more. 60% is going to be more difficult.
I thought that was fascinating. I was going to bring up the Fort Wayne example too, and I thought that was a good example because that was done actually by Mark Rosentraub and Dave Swindell, who's written a lot on this, and obviously we've done the Major League losers. But that's one of the more legitimate multiplier studies I've seen, at least explained anyway. And it's kind of, as you said, it's almost absurd. I mean, these are crazy things that they're putting into these multiplier or econometric studies, because you're saying, I'm going to go to a local theater, I'm going to count the cars, and I say, well, what day did you do that on? Was that on 4th of July weekend, or was that on a normal Tuesday night? Was that a Friday, or whatever the case may be? So you're going to count the cars and say, okay, this amount of people are from outside, and that's it. He didn't say I did it twice, he didn't say I did it 3 times, he didn't do a pre or post, and he said that's what we're going off of on that percentage. Then we're going to call other minor league teams, and no one has any idea how they put together their baselines, and then we're going to go off of that. So again, as we talked about in other shows, you're really talking about this as a large variable econometric model at best, and you take a bunch of other variables with very little any sort of fixed input into this model, and then you go off of that. This model could be grossly inaccurate on either direction, or it could be dead on. But no one has any idea. And really, they don't have any idea, quite frankly, until once a stadium's built and they see who's in the parking lot.
Yep.